Hi, I'm Red. Today I'm going to be reading some r/RegularRevenge read by Red. Try saying that 5 times fast. Alright, let's get going. Okay, here is our first story. My ex-boyfriend tries to spam me with pics of him going at it, only to get a nasty dose of payback from my friend. Once upon a time, there was a naive young maiden, me, who was yet to discover she was a lesbian. Before she came to realize she was in fact a lover of the ladies. She had some pretty nasty breakups with men that more or less sealed the deal for her preference of tacos over hot dogs. This is a story of one such breakup, or rather the aftermath of it. So back when I thought I was straight, or to be more accurate, desperate to prove to my friends that I was, I had a boyfriend who we'll call JJ. An abbreviation for the name of the most hated character in Star Wars up until 2017. JJ was a total jerk who made fun of me, lied to me, nitpicked my insecurities, and basically made it his goal in life to shame me for having a boyfriend who was so utterly out of my league like him. But it wasn't that much different than what I was used to from my dad, and I was desperate to convince myself I liked men, so I sucked it up for a while. But everybody had their own boiling point, and mine was watching him unabashedly flirting with other women in front of me. So I finally got the courage to dump him. In a perfect world, he'd have accepted the breakup gracefully, taken a closer look at himself to find out what prompted the demise of such an otherwise perfect relationship on his part, owned up to his shortcomings and moved on with his life. But sadly, this is a world where Trump is president and COVID-19 is thriving, and JJ's attitude towards me in the coming weeks was a perfect reflection of the absolute cesspool we live in. The guy just refused to accept the reality that I dumped him and not the other way around, and got it in his bleached blonde frosted tipped head that he would make me come to terms with the fact that dumping him was the biggest mistake of my life, or die trying. Unfortunately for me, he decided not to go with the latter. Oh my god, that's so harsh. What followed was several days of him spamming all my social media accounts with posts he tagged me in. From passive-aggressive think pieces about how he hoped someday I'd forgive myself for letting a catch like him go, to Instagram videos of him living his best single life without me. I tried to block him, but he'd either make new accounts or get his friends to tag me in their vids of him making a fool out of himself at their parties. But the true putrid icing on the feces-riddled metaphorical mess of a cake was when he began to text me videos of himself going at it with other women while telling them to smile for my ex and reminding me how I threw away a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be in his latest shaft sheath of the week position. Hashtag this could have been you. I was irritated and annoyed and just wanted him to leave me alone already. But where I just wanted to block his number before he could send me anything else, my friend, we'll call her Grace because she was my saving one, has a better idea with far more amusing results. You see, Grace works for a company that I had mentioned to her in passing that JJ was applying to. She was reminded of this when she saw him at the building she works at for an interview sometime before. She goes to his Insta, and one look at his account tells us that he's so blessed and thankful that he got the job and he can't wait to come into work on Monday. Much like herpes, JJ was never one to keep good news to himself. This was going to be his downfall. So, Monday rolls in and Grace comes to work dressed to the absolute nines. She's wearing pumps, a full face of makeup, received a blowout, stuffed her bra, the whole shebang. Which was coincidentally the best way to describe what was going on in my closeted gay panties when she sent me a picture of herself to let me know her plan was in motion. Knowing that JJ was fresh on the rebound, she knew he wouldn't be able to resist her. Upon entering the workroom, her boss introduces him to the rest of the team, and sure enough, the first thing he notices is Grace in all her glory. Later in the day, he practically drags himself over to her, hips first, and starts putting the moves on her. Grace puts on a show of falling for his cheesy pickup lines, which, to be fair, I genuinely did at the time, but in my defense, I probably would have thrown myself at him in my desperation to beard myself had he simply winked and made a kissy face. And agrees to give him her number. She punches it in with the intention of blocking him later. I had warned her in advance that JJ is the kind of guy who's been politely declined enough times to call a girl in front of him to make sure she didn't give him phony digits. But she also makes sure to switch my number with her bosses. And now, all we have to do is wait for him to shoot himself in the foot. A few days later, Grace triumphantly announces the last she saw of JJ at work was him being summoned to human resources before clearing out his cubicle. Nobody knew the exact reason for why he was fired, but everybody at her job received an email about how this workplace was a professional environment with a zero tolerance policy for sexual harassment. Later that week, everybody had to attend a compliance training session where the basic gist of it was, don't send unsolicited nudes of yourself ever, but especially don't be stupid enough to send them to your superior of all possible co-workers. It didn't take Albert Einstein to figure out the circumstances surrounding JJ's disappearance. Okay, here is our next story. Sold my car. New owner tries to make me pay over $2,000 in fees. So, when I was in college, I bought an old 1974 Mercury Comet with the intent of fixing it up because I loved older cars. However, due to being a broke college kid, I eventually realized that I bit off more than I could chew and started looking to sell the car. My apartment had one street where everybody could park if they didn't pay extra for a private parking space, and I couldn't afford to have a private spot, so this is where I parked. Since the street was a public street, they had a rule where you couldn't leave your car parked in the same spot for more than 72 hours, or else the car was technically abandoned, and they had the right to tow it. Now, I had problems with this rule since I'd gotten the car. Most of the time, this rule is pretty much ignored as everyone parking here either lives in the apartment complex or they were parked there because it was the closest free parking area to my university, and all the cars just blend in with each other. The problem with my car was that it stuck out like a sore thumb, being from 1974 and, admittedly, looked like it couldn't even start. So I'd gotten a decent amount of fines and tickets from them, but was always able to contest and win because I could prove I lived on the street, and I always made sure I moved it to the other side of the street every 2 to 3 days, so they legally couldn't tow it. Safe to say, every time the cars on my street were checked, they kept an eye out for mine to give some BS reason as to why they could ticket or fine me. They really didn't like me. Fast forward to selling my car. It took a while to find somebody to sell the car to, but after a couple of months I finally found a buyer. He was a little older than me, but not by much. I was only getting $1,500, which sucked because I paid closer to $2,500 for the car, but I thought I'd got my money's worth of driving around and was just glad to get something for it. He told me he couldn't pay all at once and wanted to know if we could do a payment plan for the car, which I agreed to because I just wanted the car gone, and so I wrote up a contract with everything detailing the sale in it, which he signed. I signed, and a witness, his friend who happened to come to help him with the car, also signed. I got $500 in cash, and then a few days later the car was gone, so that was the end of it. Or so I thought. Fast forward a few weeks later and I got a letter about the car. The car had been towed and was still in my name, because I completely forgot to do a title transfer when I sold the car, and had how much I owed at the bottom for the storage in the tow yard. Almost $2,000! I checked the date it was towed, and it had been towed a couple of days after I made the sale, because the buyer never took the car. What also confused me was that it had been weeks and the buyer never said anything to me asking about the car and where it was. So I messaged him and tried to call him, letting him know what had happened. He didn't get back to me until 6 days later, asking where it got towed to and if the car was still there. I gave him the information and he called the company to ask how much the total cost for the car was now. It had gone well over $3,000 now. Then I get a short message back saying, "Yeah, bro, it's too much. It's already over $3,000. I'd rather just get my $500 back." I'm sorry, the F? I get hold of him and basically tell him he's not getting his money back and that this is on him. He shouldn't have left the car there for days, which I warned him about before he bought the car. He proceeds to tell me, "Look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way." To which I tell him he's not getting his money back and he needs to pay the towing company to get the car back. He immediately hangs up and sends me a message that says, "I'll see you soon." I, a 20-year-old college student, who has never dealt with anything regarding the law, is now freaking out because the new buyer basically said, "F you," while I'm sitting here with an ever-increasing bill of over $3,000 in my name. Then I remember something. The signed contract that 3 people signed. So, I find the contract in a folder in my closet and immediately take a picture of it, just in case I need them, and then call the towing company to explain everything. The guy is super nice at first, tells me I might be completely screwed as I never sent a title transfer to the DMV. However, once I bring up the contract, he says, "Oh, you have a signed contract from before the car was towed? That's great! You should be fine as long as you send the title transfer indicating the sale date with the contract as proof to the DMV. I found out you can do one completely online, and once I sent it in, I didn't get any more messages from the towing company. However, I did end up calling the towing company a few weeks later to make sure I was in the clear, and what he told me was glorious. So, the buyer didn't pick up the car for a while, so it continued to accrue more and more fees until it reached over $4,000. But that's not the best part. The best part was him telling me that after a certain amount of days, the car gets auctioned off if it hasn't been picked up, and the owner of the car still has to pay all of the fees for the car storage. By the time the guy who tried screwing me out of $2,000 finally called to pick up his car, the towing company made sure to get all his information, name, address, etc. first, and then let him know that the car was already auctioned off, and then slapped him with around $4,500 in storage and towing fees. I couldn't be happier. Oh, and if the buyer who tried to screw me is reading this, go F yourself. That was some riveting r/regular revenge read by Red. Please like this video and don't forget to subscribe by hitting the subscribe button and turn on notifications by clicking the bell symbol. Thanks so much for watching today, guys. Have a great day. Bye bye.